Around 2 years ago, I did a video with my thoughts about Killing Floor 2 when it officially released. And since it's been so long, I figure it might be a good opportunity to make a short review about the game, since I've found myself getting back into it recently. Killing Floor 2 is a cooperative first-person shooter game developed by Tripwire Interactive. You might know them as the guys who made the Red Orchestra and the Rising Storm games. The premise is a fairly simple one. Survive increasingly harder waves of zeds, because they aren't zombies, you see, they're zeds, and then defeat the boss to win the game. While the game modes and modifiers can alter the details of the games that you play, ultimately you'll be following this simple formula. Games can be short, medium, or long, which affects how many waves until the boss there is, and you can also adjust the difficulty, which is its own topic that I'll elaborate on later. The modes of Killing Floor 2 are fairly straightforward as well. There's the Endless mode, which is, as you might guess, progressively harder waves of zeds, sometimes with modifiers that will keep coming until you just can't take them out anymore. The Weekly mode applies a particular modifier to the game that changes every week and rewards you with in-game goodies for completion. There also exist events that function like short seasons, with their own list of challenges or Zed reskins or their own specific rewards. The standard mode, though, is survival. Just survive the waves and beat the boss at the end. In between waves, a trader pod will open up somewhere on the map that you can use to purchase armor, weapons, ammo, and upgrades for your character. You'll choose from a roster of different playable characters, each with their own set of quippy one-liners and call-outs, though otherwise they are statistically identical. And then, more importantly, you'll choose what perk you play as. Perks are essentially classes. In fact, I'll probably end up calling them that because that's what everyone calls them, because that's what they are. The classes of Killing Floor 2 are varied, each offering their own advantages in combat, and many of them playing out in very different ways, each of them specializing in a genre of weaponry or ability without being too complex. Classes get bonuses that are both passive and increase as the class is leveled up, and every 5 levels the player can choose between one of 2 bonuses or skills that can be switched between rounds depending on what you might find useful. These skills are powerful upgrades that allow you to make your character objectively more capable, enabling you to access as you play higher difficulties with that class as you go. For instance, at Support's level 5 skill, you can choose between reloading faster or higher magazine capacity, or maybe just sheer damage increase compared to having higher health. And these are simple, but very impactful skills, though some classes, like the Field Medic, give you more interesting options, like having to choose between personal buffs or the ability to apply bonuses to your teammates as you heal them. You can also change your class completely between rounds if you wish, and once you reach level 25 of the class, you can prestige it, similar to Call of Duty, to earn goodies and a permanent XP bonus with that class. So as an example, let's take the Commando. He specializes in assault rifles, and he can see enemy health bars. He has the ability to reveal cloaked enemies for his team. The Berserker can't be grabbed by most Zeds. He regenerates health passively, wields melee weapons effectively. Field Medics have a variety of weapons and access to passive team buffs. His weaponry can shoot healing darts, and he tosses health grenades to keep the team alive and well. The Demolitionist specializes in explosives, making him an excellent class for killing bigger Zeds or crowd controlling. Support is the Shotgunner, and teammates can get armor and ammunition from him, and he can repair broken doors if Zeds ever break down those barriers. Overall, though, there are 10 classes in total that you can choose from. Each is leveled up individually and has their own bonuses and inherent disadvantages that are just part of their playstyle and are a result of the weaponry they use. Each class can use any weapon in the game that they wish, however, they only receive bonuses from their own type. Killing Floor 2's weapons, though, do allow for class crossover, so a Medic SMG gives bonuses not only to the Medic, but also to the SWAT class who specializes in SMGs. So the SWAT guy makes the Medic SMG more combat effective, though his healing capability with that gun won't be quite as good as the Medic has. The M16 is an assault rifle with an under-barrel grenade launcher, so both the commando and the demolitionist both get their own kind of bonuses from the weapon. The Dragon Breath shotgun shoots incendiary rounds, so both the Firebug and the shotgun specializing support class will get bonuses from it. Classes even have their own kind of grenades. The Sharpshooter's grenade freezes zeds and lets you line up headshots with them, and the Firebug throws Molotovs, and SWAT can stun enemies with a flashbang. The Berserker's EMP slows and cripples them and disables them from using their abilities. The Field Medic has his healing grenade that damages zeds as well. Classes behave distinctly differently. As you play the classes, you'll find what weapons you feel are the best for you and what combinations are fun or effective. Each class, though, does have a weight limit on what you can carry at one time. You have no limit on how many guns you can have, so long as they don't pass over the weight limit. This acts essentially so you can't have too many high-tier weapons at once, like a built-in balancer. Some classes can carry more than others, and learning what combinations cover your bases is an important part of gameplay. The weapons themselves, though, of Killing Floor 2, and I don't say this lightly, are among some of the most fun and engaging in any video game that I've ever played. Not only is the variety incredible just in terms of how they play out and what damage they do or how they feel, basically every attribute you could imagine is different between the guns. I mean, even among the same kind of weapons, they feel unique. A P90 is way different than a UMP, an M16 is wildly different than the FAL, the Fire Axe is completely different than the Katana. Weaponry is a joy to experiment with and to utilize. Weapon recoil and feedback is consistent and well animated, and every shot you take gives you a sense that it's an actual firearm doing actual damage to baddies. Enemies will recoil from that damage, and they'll fumble and stumble and be thrown about by explosives and melted by fire. They're not just boring walking health bars that topple over lazily when defeated, they react to different kinds of damage in their own particular ways. I'm incredibly fond of explosive weapons. The way that they make zeds turn to pieces or get thrown around, it just satisfies the little killer doggo deep inside me. But learning how weapons function and what enemies each weapon is best against, and familiarizing yourself with a skill curve of how the gunplay works in Killing Floor 2, it's a process, but it's an enjoyable one, because every new weapon that you use feels like its own character almost. Tripwire's skill in creating satisfying gunplay is something that deserves every ounce of praise that it gets, and no doubt you'll end up developing your personal favorite weapons as you play. During the gameplay, sometimes you will trigger Zed time, which is essentially a period of slow motion where everything moves at a fraction of its normal speed. It's bullet time. During Zed time, each class has abilities that trigger, maybe unlimited ammo, or faster fire rates, or faster reload time, healing pulses. There's immense advantage to be gained during these periods of slow motion, namely the ability to line up as many headshots as you can on incoming enemies and take them out, because in Killing Floor 2, headshots are king. Zed time also shows just how much work was put into the animations of the weapons. You'll see the gun parts jiggle and wobble in ways that you wouldn't notice during proper time, but can be seen when the world slows to a crawl. Another excellent detail of a game whose scale isn't necessarily itself very large. The Zeds themselves that you spend your time fighting against are composed of a wide array of different baddies. Many are simple, just humanoid creatures that run towards the player and bite and claw. Some are more complex. Bloats are large, fat things that vomit on the player and inhibit your vision, and they can leave acid on the ground that you have to avoid or shoot at. Sirens scream when they get close, which will stop grenades or explosives in mid-air from detonating, and it bypasses your armor to deal health damage to all players in range. Husks will fire rockets at the player, but if they get close, he'll use a flamethrower, and if his health gets low, he'll sprint at the players and try to detonate himself for massive damage. There are more examples, as you see in the gameplay, but you get the idea. Different Zeds are different tiers of threats, and different classes should prioritize enemies since the game is a team effort, and not every player will have the same capability against every target. Some classes are better at high single-target damage, other classes are better at area damage. Everyone has a role to play. At the end of the wave comes the boss. And Killing Floor 2 has 4 bosses, one of which is randomly selected to be fought. bosses are deadly and quick and tanky, and cooperating with your team can be vital to success. And learning what attacks each boss will use is imperative. Since the boss enemies can have different behaviors, it's important to, over time, familiarize yourself with the best locations on the map that should be used to fight him. And as I mentioned earlier, each game is set at a particular difficulty. Normal, hard, suicidal, and hell on earth. One of the greatest aspects of Killing Floor 2 is how the game treats the differences in difficulty. It doesn't just make the Zeds more bullet spongy and do more damage as the difficulty increases. Enemies will use a wider variety of movements and attacks as well. Husks will start using the aforementioned flamethrower that they didn't use on lower difficulties. Zeds will start sprinting faster, moving at odder patterns. They might roll around and behave in ways that they didn't before. And while Zeds will indeed be tougher, it's not so much that your weapons ever feel weak. Zeds will still often die to a headshot as they did before. They don't get so tough that the game becomes dull. They'll be deadlier, but you won't get the impression that you simply can't kill them. As a result, the game stays fun and engaging on higher difficulties. And look, I don't know how controversial this opinion is, but it's one of the reasons that I hate Nazi zombies in Call of Duty. The zombies get so tough that it would take a crazy number of rounds to kill them each, to a point where my gun felt weak and pathetic. But in Killing Floor 2, your guns always feel like they're potent and they pack a punch. And while at higher difficulties you get less dosh, the in-game currency used to buy items and upgrades between waves, as well as getting less pickups at higher difficulties, you'll also get more XP from killing Zeds. Another amazing part of the game is the support for custom and community-created maps. And I can't stress just how incredible some of these maps are. Recreations of Killing Floor 1 maps, Super Mario levels or Mario Kart levels, Stalker maps, Resident Evil 4 maps, Borderlands arenas. I could go on and on about all the cool levels that have been designed and are fully playable in this game. All kinds of interesting and zany and unusual designs have found their way into the gameplay experience. And while some levels are far easier than others by their design, the sheer amount of levels that can be played adds an immense amount of replay value to a game that already has immense amounts of replay value. I've constantly been finding maps that I haven't seen before, and it never ceases to amaze me just how creative the people who play this game can be. And that's not to overshine the official Tripwire maps, which are generally good as well, but there's only so many maps that the developers can make themselves. And the support that exists for community-made content for levels is legitimately staggering. The game does also have in-game unlockables, skins for weapons, cosmetics, emotes, other such effects. All of these items are aesthetic only and don't affect gameplay, and the Steam Marketplace for Killing Floor 2 items is massive. Meaning if you enjoy the game, you can drop some money into Steam and walk away from the player-driven market with a veritable smorgasbord of skins and cosmetics. And in a gaming landscape where games like to charge you $18 for a single skin, it's nice to be able to drop $5 into a market that goes back to players and walk out with literally dozens of new goodies that you choose. Killing Floor 2, it's a joy to play. It's fast, it's fun, it's got gripping gunplay, and more replay value than you can shake a stick at. Even 2 years after it released, it's got a great community going, and there's always games to find at the difficulties you want. I have over 500 hours in this game, and I know that I'll be putting even more into it into the future. So if you enjoy cooperative games, if you like good first-person shooter, or experiences that you can enjoy in bite-sized chunks, then you should definitely check out Tripwire Interactive's Killing Floor 2. It gets this doggo's seal of approval. I love this game. It's great. Pew pew, pow, bang.